2 weeks ago, my brother Sam and I participated in the Ludum Dare 57 Game Jam. It was the first game jam I've done in over 5 years, and the last one I did barely counted because of how bad I was at programming. So this time, I have experience under my belt and was ready to make an absolute banger of a game. The themes for the jam this time seemed decent enough, so we were hoping people voted for more interesting ones like Keep It Together or Side Effects. However, we ended up on Depths, which wasn't bad, but we felt that it had limited options for one or two things for most people, either caves or underwater. After a short 30-minute brainstorming walk session, we came up with the idea was an ocean exploration game where you have to search the depths of the ocean to document the fish in the area into a journal. And to get to the lower depths, you would have to upgrade your submarine to withstand higher pressure. And to make the game a little bit more of a challenge, we would include pressure breaks in the sub, and the player would need to fix them, as well as replacing the oxygen candle on board the vessel. So I got to work, doing the basic stuff, creating a new project and setting up the player controller to be able to move around the ship. I then set up the ability for the player to be able to interact with various objects around the sub. The next thing to do was make the player be able to drive the submarine. So I made the interactable and allowed the player to enter the ship seat and drive it around. However, the players seemed to be glitching around, but this was easily fixed with a little bit of fiddling around. Afterwards, I decided to mock up how one of the main mechanics would work, observing. The first thing to add was make the player be able to sit down in an observation seat. The next thing was to make it so the player can capture a region to log into the journal by clicking. While the player is observing, the camera pans in the direction of the mouse from the player, and when driving, the camera pans towards the direction of movement. When the player captures a region, if a fish is contained within the region, in my case, my fish is the red dot you can see on screen, it will log the fish in the journal as completed, and will set the picture taken of that region into the journal. In the meantime, Sam had completed a ton of art and was now ready to put them into the game. This included the full submarine and many of the interactable stations inside. This felt really amazing to get in and made me feel like we were making some serious progress. Now, it was time to create some user interface for the player journal. We decided the best way to show a journal would be a literal book.
This is not a diary, it's a journal!
So my brother quickly drew up a book sprite as well as a Polaroid for each of the journal entries. Another big mechanic of the game is pressure and oxygen. To inform the player better on these mechanics, we added cool gauges that represent each statistic on the submarine. I also added a little bit of wiggle to the gauge in order to make them feel less static and have a little more life to them. When the submarine goes too deep, the pressure increases and the submarine begins to break down. And when the player hasn't replaced the oxygen candle in a while, the oxygen goes down and the player will eventually suffocate. The oxygen candle was pretty useless currently, so I quickly whipped up the ability to refill it by interacting with it. The refilling takes about 3 seconds to complete and will completely refill the oxygen in the submarine back to full. After this, Sam had completed a player sprite sheet to use. So I added in the animated player and it made the game feel way more full. I love his little flapping arms, they are so cute. As you probably noticed, I also created an actual ocean object in the back of the scene. This is so the player can gauge where they are and not just be floating in the sky. I also added waves to the ocean so it's more dynamic, as well as the ability for the submarine to deform the ocean when it goes above and below it. For some reason though, this broke further down the line, so it actually isn't in the final project. I have no idea why. And now we have a real fish to represent the humble cod. Look at that little guy. Now, to really convey the theme of depths, I made the game get darker and darker the deeper you go. What's more, is the only way to see is by lights on the vessel. These make the game actually pretty creepy, especially when you go very deep and it's nearly pitch black. Now, what would make the game 100 times better? Music. Sam had spent the day hard at work creating some awesome music tracks for the game, ones that would suit the ocean theme but also get darker and more creepy the further you explore downwards. We had 4 tracks for the game. A surface track, which is light and bubbly. A shallows track, which is light but still has some etherealness to it. And a mid-zone track, which is getting darker and more heavy but retains some of the themes from the previous tracks. And then the Depths track, showing the cold abyss of the ocean floor. I think these all together blending makes the game feel so much better and contributes to the game feeling great to play. While he was making the music, I got to work creating an underwater environment including the ground and several objects to be placed on the ocean floor, as well as creating a little secret spot where I added a Stonehenge underwater. Then it was time to add in the remainder of the fish that we had drawn. These were the black cardinal fish, the black spiny fish, the butterfly kingfish, the cod, the double-band surgeon, the goblin shark, the milkfish, the northern pike, the tuna, and finally, the yellow speckled chromis. And while writing the script, I actually completely forgot about one fish, the yellow long-nosed butterfly fish. We shall miss you, buddy. And after putting all these fish entries into the journal, it started to look really full and complete. Now, something we completely forgot about up until now was the upgrade panel, which we decided it would work by the player returning to the surface where a large boat would pull up and give you upgrade options. And we thought the player could get upgrade credits by filling in journal entries. So the more entries filled, the more player can upgrade their sub, then the lower down they can travel. There were a few small additions we added, such as the gauge's flash went on the extreme ends of the scale. I added it so way more fish spawned at any one time because we felt the spawn rates were way too low. The last major feature to add in was the radio. We really only had time to make the initial radio call at the start of the game to kind of explain everything, and that was it. But we felt it looked quite nice once finished and added more variety to the game. And after this, our game was pretty much complete. And with all that said and done, here's a video of the final product. So we uploaded the game to Ludum Dare and awaited results. And generally, people found the game pretty enjoyable, and they also gave some absolutely incredible feedback for us to take on the next time we do this challenge. That's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. It was a really long process to get a game done. However, I'm proud of what we accomplished, and I will definitely do it again in the future. Maybe next time with a larger group of people? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I will see all of you in the next one. Have a good day.